Hey everybody. So last week I went to go and see Cluedo 2 touring version with Ellie Leach in it at the Yvonne Arnaud Theatre in Guildford. So if we talk about the theatre first of all, I like the Yvonne Arnaud. It's quite a smallish theatre. The staff there are really helpful. It's undergoing a bit of a refurbishment at the moment, so you've got portaloos that are outside the front, but they have decorated them with banners and fairy lights and things like that. So they're actually probably easier to use the toilet than it would normally be at a theatre because there were so many of them outside. Like I said, the staff were really helpful. They opened the doors at the interval so that people could easily get to the loos. They were directing people. There are a couple of loos inside, but again, like I said, you probably have to really queue for those because there's not many of them. We were sat down kind of in the stall areas. We were about 2 rows back from the front of the stage, which was a fantastic view, really good. Seats nice and comfy. They're just the normal foldy uppy downy ones. Fairly basic, but yeah, it was comfortable enough to sit in. You could get your programme, which was £4. You can get water there, you can get tap water if you wanted to there, you can get your drinks, you can get your snacks, so all your normal sorts of things. Same sort of prices you would find anywhere really, so nothing that I wasn't expecting when it came to that. So the theatre itself, I like it as a theatre. Now the production, slightly different matter. So I went to Cluedo 2 expecting it to be kind of a fun, farcical, laugh a minute kind of production, which is what it was pretty much described as on the website, but it's not really what it delivered. So the first act, I think, probably was weaker than the second act. The second act was, much faster pace, had more comedy in it. I think for me, some of the things that kind of let this production down were that I think the writing was a bit dated, if I'm completely honest. Some of the jokes were going over people's heads, and I think that was also to do with the comic timing. I think some of it was thrown away a bit. So some of the jokes were lost. Some of the jokes were going over people's heads because they weren't generally funny, or they didn't land well, or they were too old. Some of them actually made you feel a little bit uncomfortable in the nature of what they were saying, because again, it just probably because it was a bit dated, and you kind of think, well, at one point in time that might have been funny, but actually it wasn't landing quite so well on this occasion. I think the characters, it was very much, you had your stock characters, and they were very over the top, very drama school lovey, which is exactly as it should have been, but not everybody was kind of matching that. So for me, Colonel Mustard, it was great, standout character, and so was Hal Green. There was a joke that was surrounding the whole Al Green kind of thing, again, which I think quite a few people that we were with, it went over their heads and they didn't quite get why everybody was laughing at that. I did, but that's probably because I'm old. I think his character was very good. It was very over the top, but it was quite smooth as well. Colonel Mustard, again, very good, but maybe sometimes a bit over the top. I didn't like the Mr. Black character very much. I wasn't keen on Professor Plum, and to be honest, Ellie Leach, who played Miss Scarlet, I just felt that she didn't fit with the cast because a lot of them were doing these over-the-top stock character kind of voices and accents, and hers wasn't. So her performance seemed very much sort of below the performance of other people, and it just felt that it jarred, I think, a little bit. The actress who played Mrs. Peacock, she was brilliant. She was really good. And the actress who played Mrs. White, again, a very funny character, probably one of my favourite characters, I think, Mrs. White. And I liked the changes that she had in her character through the 2 different acts. Same probably with Mrs. Peacock, actually. Costume wise, again, you see, it just didn't seem to marry together. You had Colonel Mustard that was all kind of decked out in your mustard colours, and it was kind of actually what I was expecting and how I was wanting it, and the same thing with Hal Green. But they were in these very kind of almost caricature costumes of how you would expect Colonel Mustard to look. And then you had Professor Plum, who was in this kind of 70s get-up that made no sense really whatsoever. And then you had Mr. Black, who was in like an 80s almost Led Zeppelin heavy rock band kind of costume, which again made no sense whatsoever. Miss Scarlet was almost dressed like she was in the 60s with knee-high white boots and a red dress, and really Miss Scarlet should be a bit more of a femme fatale, and actually that's how her character was. It was supposed to be that, you know, she'd been having an affair with someone. Well, I didn't believe that she would have had an affair with someone. And actually the character, Mr. Gray, who was a producer, who she was supposed to have had the affair of, again, I didn't believe that he's someone that someone would have had an affair with. So, you know, these characters and their costumes, they just didn't match. The style of the play itself was supposed to be a farce, but it also had lots of modern elements in it. Now, I really liked the modern elements. I loved the bit when they were chasing each other around the corridors, and they had picture frames, and the billiard table, if you do go and see it, you know, it's great the way they do it, really innovative, and probably actually really appeals to my style of theatre, maybe how I would direct things. But it didn't match with the farce. It needed to either go one way or the other. So you kind of found yourself feeling a little bit confused as to why they were doing what they were doing, what was going on. It took you a little while to get into it. The modern sections actually fitted with the set, which was a very kind of modern set, and the actors bringing everything onto the set themselves and using that within the scene changes, which was done very, very cleverly. But yeah, it just felt that it didn't all match together. It was a mixture of styles. It wasn't just one style. And I think if it stuck to one style, maybe slightly more modern in its taking, with some slightly more up-to-date humour and jokes, I think that would have made the whole thing sit much better. As I said, the pace when you came to the second act was much quicker, and I think because of it you were getting more laughs out of it. It was good fun. You were seeing sort of more of the characters themselves. Now, I know a lot of people will say that the first act is really there to kind of set up that finale in the second act and set up everything happening, but it shouldn't always be that way. You should be able to get a feel for the play right the way throughout, which I just don't think you got. So spoiler coming up. So if you don't want to know what happens at the end and who done it, then probably now is the time to turn off. But we were all trying to guess who we thought might have done it. And in some ways, I think it was slightly lazy in the end, in that kind of almost everybody did it. Everybody killed somebody. And it was a bit of a bloodbath at the end, with kind of everybody almost dying. And you kind of went, oh, okay. Again, I think it would have been slightly more interesting if it had been maybe just one or two people. Yeah, I just felt it was a little bit lazy. Although I'm going to say the death of the butler, he was very funny with his comic timing and getting a cushion to lie on while he was dying on the floor. So that was very clever. Like I said, you know, there were lots of moments in it that I felt worked maybe better in the second act than did in the first act. So would I recommend this to people? I think, do you know what? I think if you were just going for a bit of light entertainment and you weren't having to pay loads for the tickets, then I would say, yeah, you know, go and see it. It's a fun evening with some friends. Would I go and see it again? No, I probably wouldn't, if I'm completely honest. Because like I said, it just felt a little bit dated. You could happily go and see this without having seen Cluedo. It does make a reference sort of, to the previous murder, but you could go and see it as a standalone play, which a lot of us that went to see it, that was how we went to see it. So you don't need to have seen both in order to go and see Cluedo 2. But no, it's probably not one that I would rush back to see. I think for me it's a one and done. But I'd be interested to know what your thoughts and your opinions are on it. So if you do go and see it and you see the touring version, drop me a comment below and tell me what you thought. And like I said, tell me what you think about how the actors gel together. For me, they just really didn't. And I think Ellie Leach was there as a name because obviously she's done Strict Come Dancing and won that last year. But her acting capabilities, I think, were probably more suited for on screen than on stage in a piece like this. I think in a different piece of theatre, it could be a very different point. She could be absolutely great in a slightly more naturalistic piece of drama, but for this one, it really didn't work for me. But anyway, let me know what you think. I hope you've enjoyed this review. If you have, then please don't forget to like and subscribe. Lots more things coming up over the next few weeks. Hope you have a fantastic day. Bye.